Right, good morning ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting of the Cabinet of Staffordshire County Council today, Wednesday the 13th of December. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Mr Bradbury, do we have any apologies?
Good morning, Leader. I'm in receipt of one apology from Councillor Ian Parry.
Thank you very much indeed. Second item is declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Do I have any declarations of interest? For the record, nobody is indicating. Agenda item number 3 is the decision notice of the meeting held on the 15th of November 2023. Is it your wish I sign that off as a correct record of the meeting?
Agreed.
Agenda item 4, Cabinet Leaders Update for December 2023. Colleagues, last week I had the opportunity to speak at the Network North Transport Conference in Birmingham. Local authority partners spoke with one voice on the major benefit improvements to the A50-A500 corridor would bring. It's critical that the east-west route for Staffordshire and the wider region, and now this has been included in the projects listed under Network North proposals, this council will be doing everything we can to ensure the government delivers on its commitments. It may still only be December, but we've already seen our first cold snap, with many parts of the county waking up to snow at the start of the month, particularly in the north of the county around the moorlands. As always, our fantastic gritting crews work tirelessly through the night and over the weekend, and will be out over the festive period where needed to keep Staffordshire on the move over the Christmas break. There are more than 6,000 kilometres of road in Staffordshire, so keeping our main roads safe and moving in snowy and icy conditions is no mean feat, and I would like to thank them for their efforts on behalf of the Council and the County for their efforts. Councillor Williams, Councillor Pritchard, if you could pass on our thanks to your teams for the hard work that they do. The thought of having to spend the night out driving around the county's roads to keep them clear whilst the rest of the county is either sleeping or in some cases trying to sleep is a really critical thing that they do. News that many local councils are facing increased pressure and significant financial challenge seems to be never far away from the headlines at the moment. Like all local government, we have seen real pressures around demand for both adult and children's care and support services. So I am pleased that despite these pressures, we are on track to deliver a balanced budget and still invest in our key priorities. We will be discussing the draft proposals in this meeting, and of course we'll need to wait for the details of the government's local finance settlement before we finalise our plans in the new year. We know that balancing our books will also be a big challenge for many families across Staffordshire this winter. Christmas can be an expensive time, so we would encourage people to check the Here to Help pages on the Council website for support and advice on where to turn if you need help. We will also be offering free school holiday activities once again to eligible families. Elsewhere, we are teaming up with Staffordshire Samaritans to help those who struggle with their mental health over the festive period. On Friday, the 22nd of December, the longest night of the year, we'll be lighting the Shire Hall green and encouraging people to safely put green lights in their windows. It is all to send a message that you are not alone and that there is always somebody to talk to. And with Samaritan volunteers, even taking calls on Christmas Day. Finally, before moving on to the next item on our agenda, I want to take the opportunity in our last meeting of the year to thank you all, our outstanding County Council colleagues, partners and residents who work tirelessly to support people and businesses across the county 365 days of the year. I know many of them will be working over the Christmas period, particularly those in care roles, to keep people safe and well. Thank you for everything you do, and may I wish you all a peaceful Christmas and a happy New Year. The next item is Staffordshire Means Back to Business, oral update brought to you by the Deputy Leader and the Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. So this month I'd like to update Cabinet on three main areas. So firstly, our efforts to regenerate our town centres. Secondly, some of the exciting developments at I-54, a major employment site that the County Council, together with South Staffordshire District Council and Wolverhampton City Council, own and operate. And finally, some exciting news about our tourism sector in the county. But first I'll provide my usual update on the most recent claimant counts for universal credit, which were released yesterday. So last month saw an increase of 340 claimants in Staffordshire, which means that our universal credit claimant rate is 2.8% of the working age population. That relates to a national average of 3.8%, so well below that, and a regional average for the West Midlands of 4.9%. So as we've seen for a little while now, our employment statistics follow the national trend, where there is a slight increase in universal credit claimants, but Staffordshire remains one of the best places in the county and indeed in the country to find a job, which is good news. Within that, there's been an increase of 60 claimants within the youth claimant category, so 18 to 24-year-olds. Again, our rate at 4.7% is well below the national average of 5.1% and particularly the regional average of 6.9%. As colleagues will know, the County Council works very hard in terms of helping those who need help into employment, particularly through our jobs brokerage service, which I've covered here many times before. But we work both with our partners and through our own resources to help people who are looking for a job. On to town centre regeneration, and some very good news for Stafford, which was announced by the Levelling Up Secretary here in the county town a few weeks ago, which is that we've been successful in securing a Levelling Up Fund project to redevelop the Stafford Station Gateway area of the town. This is an area that many visitors to our county will be very familiar with. It is one of the most important gateways into the county, and there is a large parcel of land there which will now be redeveloped, creating hundreds of new homes and thousands of square feet of business and enterprise space, which is much needed in Staffordshire, and particularly in Stafford, a very popular place to come and live and work. That work is testament to many years of hard work by councillors and officers, both here at the County Council but also at Stafford Borough Council, some of whom are sat around this table. So I pay tribute to them, and it is part of an enormously successful enterprise here in Staffordshire that the County Council plays a key part in, which has seen £220 million of national funding attracted into Staffordshire's towns to help regenerate them. And that's been one of our key priorities for some years here at the County Council, to do our part in making sure that that regeneration work happens. And at all 4 points of the compass around the county, you can see that happening. But here in our county town, that is fantastic news and a testament to the strength of our partnership work. The station gateway is of course only one of the elements of the regeneration of Stafford. The future High Street Fund's work is held by the Borough Council, but the County Council's Eastgate regeneration plans continue to develop apace, and I look forward to bringing further details of that to Cabinet next year. In addition to that, our History Centre development in Stafford is moving apace towards completion, I believe, next summer, which we're very excited about. And our Shire Hall Business Centre, opened earlier this year, is nearing full occupancy and providing extremely valuable service to small businesses, which, let us not forget, make up 98% of the businesses that operate in Staffordshire. Moving on to I-54, this is one of our more mature employment sites, developed again in partnership with other councils in the region. And I'm pleased to say that the further extension of that site is now on stream, an extension that we constructed to meet demand from employers. Back in the summer, it was announced that Fortune Brands would be building a 270,000 square foot manufacturing centre of excellence on that extension, which supports the group's product ranges of luxury ceramics and brassware brands, so quality, precision manufactured goods produced here in Staffordshire. And I'm pleased to say that that development will be completed shortly, with the recruitment of around 300 skilled jobs coming into our county, into that site, thanks to the work of this council and our fellow councils. So this is yet another example of the value that I-54 develops to our residents. Manufacturing land in Staffordshire is hard to come by, and the fact that the council has been able to unlock that site, and we now see it reaching its maturity, is very good news indeed. The final thing that I mentioned is our visitor economy, tourism. which is one of our key strengths. It represents nearly £2 billion to our economy and employs around 33,000 people in Staffordshire. It is a big part of what we have here. And we've listed the numerous wonderful attractions we have many times before in this room, so I won't attempt to repeat that now. But what I am very pleased to say is that that significant role that we play in tourism in England has been recognised by Visit England in the awarding to Staffordshire of the status of being a local visitor economy partnership. This is a new creation and it represents the top tier of tourism economies around the country. So the places that Visit England, when they want to talk to, and most importantly for us, invest in areas of the country that really count for something in terms of tourism, these are the areas that they go to. And Staffordshire has secured one of these. Again, it's been a partnership act between all of the local authorities in the county, including Stoke-on-Trent City Council, and the many operators in the visitor economy who will contribute to the success of that sector. It's very good news, something that we'll talk about again here, particularly I hope in terms of investment from Visit England and others, but a really great thing to be able to announce as we go into the Christmas period when those tourist attractions will be very busy and something that we can all celebrate here today. Thank you very much, Leader.
Councillor Price.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor White. That's a really comprehensive update on some of the works that's being done. I was fortunate enough to be sat on the previous administration at Stafford Borough Council when a lot of the work had been done both with officers and the cabinet and members of that group towards getting the projects such as the Stafford Station Gateway and the Future High Streets Fund have bid in as well. And it's really nice to see that some of that work is now starting, and you've seen that the square in the market has already been done, and that looks really good. So I'm really pleased with that work, but it also shows that the County Council is fully committed to supporting all high streets and growth in all areas of Staffordshire, but particularly they've also focused on making sure that we have a county town that we can be extremely proud of. And I think that collaboration and partnership working with the County Council and the previous administration at Stafford Borough Council, and continues to do so going forward, has really, really worked well, and I'm extremely grateful for the work that officers here as well, and under the leadership of Councillor White has made a massive, massive difference. And I'm looking forward to seeing what our county town will look like in the next couple of years when a lot of this work comes to fruition. And I was fortunate enough to have a quick look at the work on the History Centre as well, and that looks absolutely fantastic. So well done to Councillor Wilson and officers too for the work that's being done there. So exciting times. I wasn't gonna say this, but you do see some of the negative comments, particularly around Stafford Town and how they say it looks run down, etc. But actually, if you have a really good look at the work that's going on, there's a real vibe, and I'm very proud of where I live, and I'm very proud of the county town and Staffordshire as a whole. So I just wanted to thank you.
Councillor DeVille.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Councillor Price is right. There is a real positive vibe, and I thank the Deputy Leader for that extremely upbeat message. And it's true, and I think we can see the developments and the improvements right across the county, which results in those tourism figures that you were talking about. You know, our county is good for attracting tourism. You can see the work that's going on in the county town. Really, really positive. But I think more importantly, we can see improvements going on right across the county. Up in the moorlands, we have very ambitious plans for Leek, the markets, the Nicholson Institute, work in Biddulph at the Biddulph Leisure Centre. What I'd ask the Deputy Leader, if we could continue the good work that we've done in the past and look at further improvements in the other major town in the moorlands, Cheadle. We'd done some initial work on that. If I could ask that we continue the work to look at Cheadle, which unfortunately wasn't successful in the last Levelling Up Fund bid, but is a key area and is really the gateway into the Staffordshire Peak District. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, colleagues. So regarding regarding Stafford and the plans that are now coming to fruition, yes, absolutely, that hard work, this Levelling Up Fund bid that's just been successful in round 3 illustrates the point, I think, that these are long-form activities. So the administration that you were part of put that bid in. After a period of time, it's now been granted, and it's for the new administration to deliver it. Throughout that period, this county council has been and will be supporting all of those activities, the bid activities, the delivery activities, and that's exactly what we can properly do. In addition to it, it must be said, our own Levelling Up Fund bid, which was successful, which is delivering huge improvements on the A34 in Stafford. So a lot of work going on in Stafford at the moment, and apologies to people for any disruption that's causing them, but the end result, I think, will be well worth that trouble. And regarding the moorlands, the other area in Staffordshire that succeeded in its Levelling Up Fund bid, again, we help with that bid process. We will work very closely with the council in terms of the delivery of those improvements, but we will also not forget those towns that haven't benefited from a Levelling Up Fund investment or Town Deal or Future High Streets Fund, such as Cheadle. They are every bit as valuable, and Councillor DeVille knows I'm very fond of Cheadle as well, so any opportunity to come and visit when we're kicking off the next piece of work there, I'll be delighted to. But it will most certainly be part of our plans and part of our joint working. Thank you.
Councillor Jessel.
Very much, and I'll try not to steal some forthcoming thunder that the Deputy Leader may have, but I would hate the work that's happening in Burton-on-Trent to go without a mention. Shortly, the A38 interchange at Branston, the works will be starting there, which will make a vast improvement to the current highway system, but also unlock further land for development at Branston Locks. And also yesterday, I won't say it was sod cutting because it was more like a mud pack cutting, but went to an event at Bargates in Burton Town Centre, which is under development, and a housing association, Trent and Dove, are just commencing their development, bringing much needed homes, sheltered accommodation, which provides independent living and a high quality independent living for elderly people, which I very much welcome, and was supported by county council officers there who have been helping to ease the process to enable that development to go ahead. I was cabinet member when East Staffs Borough Council first bought that site off Tesco, and it's lovely to see that part of Burton now, with the assistance of the County Council, being regenerated. So just to put Burton on the map and say thank you very much.
I'll very briefly respond to that. Just to prove that we're all community councillors, I actually get my hair cut opposite that site, so I've been watching the groundworks progressing this year, sometimes feeling them because I've been pile driving quite a lot of things into the ground there as well. So yes, it's been great to see that. And yes, the investment is at all 4 points of the compass, as I mentioned in Burton, the improvements at Branston Interchange, which follow the improvements that have already been made at the other A38 junction in Burton at Clay Mills, are going to be complemented by works on Derby Road and indeed on Horninglow Road, so the two of the other principal routes into the town. Oh, and not to forget Ashby Road, actually, thinking of points of the compass, which has also already seen significant improvements. So that investment is really being brought to bear to make a difference on our towns. And yes, there is some disruption whilst that happens, which is an inevitable consequence of it. But the scale of the investment into Staffordshire's towns is really quite significant, and I'm quite excited to see all of that come to fruition over the next few years. Thank you.
There don't appear to be any further questions. Thank you very much indeed for that update, Councillor White. We'll move then on to agenda item number 6, which is Older People Adult Social Care Commissioning Strategy 2024 to 2029, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel.
Yes, thank you very much, Leader. I shall be fairly brief about the introduction to this strategy, because I think the ensuing action plan, which will be brought to Cabinet in January is actually the item that everybody will be interested. It is indeed. Strategies are all well and good. It's actually what actions are agreed to deliver them. The strategy is designed to promote well-being and independence of older people. We're not talking just about how long people live, but trying to ensure that people live active and quality lives. It's that quality that is important. So the strategy is to promote that well-being and independence, to improve the quality of life, but also to ensure that when support is needed, people know where to get it and it's easily accessible. So it is about ensuring the quality, the affordability of that support, and to provide those reliable services. It's been co-produced. The integrated care system have been involved, providers, partners, social care professionals, and, as very importantly, older people and their carers. There are 4 key priorities identified within the report, and the strategy focuses on prevention, creating that environment where people can live independent quality lives, the quality of service, living independently, and in terms of care homes as well, providing the right support in the right areas where people need it. So it will be now moving to developing the action plan, which, as I say, will be available by the end of January, and that is the thing that is really important. Strategies are fine. We do need them in place. This is a strategy till 2029. But what is really important is what we intend to do. And as I say, that will be presented to Cabinet at the end of January. So I'll take any questions that anybody wants to raise, but otherwise I'll move the recommendation.
Does anybody have any questions for Councillor Jessel? Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the Cabinet member for introducing the item. Really endorse the approach that people should stay in their own homes for as long as possible. Of course, there is a need for care home provision eventually for a lot of people. And priority number 4, which are welcome on care homes, and the objective of enabling choice and control for people who have care home needs, and also the objective be that older people are able to continue to stay connected to friends and the local community when they're within a care home. I've raised this issue before about the issues in Newcastle under Lyme. I think on a report we previously had to Cabinet that was seen of a insufficient capacity within the borough. And I know the County Council, through your leadership, Councillor Jess, is exploring opportunities to develop care homes across areas and other districts. Could you update on the situation in Newcastle? Because I think it's quite relevant for people that have elderly relatives who may need to go into care homes. They want to be near and close to them and not have to travel too far into other districts. And just wanted an update, if you could give us on the situation with Newcastle under Lyme.
Thank you very much. Yes, you're absolutely right that there are areas in the county where supply isn't what we would like. And as you know, we've had previous reports about this. My understanding is there are 2 areas that I have to say I've got grouped together, Newcastle and Stafford. And my understanding is there are 7 new nursing homes being developed by the private sector in those areas, which will satisfy that demand. As we know, it's not only the capacity, it's the affordability as well of that provision. And this council has a policy of, it's provided by the private sector, we will intervene where that market is failing, which is something that we are looking to do, and a report will be coming back to Cabinet on that, I think the end of February, March. Yeah. But as my understanding is in the Newcastle, Stafford area, there are 7 new homes under development. Thank you.
Any other questions for Councillor Jessel? Councillor Jessel, if you could give us the recommendations, please.
Yes, certainly. I recommend that Cabinet approve the proposed Older People Adult Social Care Commissioning Strategy 2024 to 2029. I so move.
All those in favour? For the record, that is unanimous. We move on to agenda item number 7, the medium-term financial strategy 2024 to 2029. Once again this year, the eagle eyes amongst you will have noticed I am not Ian Parry. So I will, of course, present the report in combination with Councillor Parry, and I will not take questions at the end, but I will absorb questions and relay them to Councillor Parry for him to answer them in due course. All got that? Good. That's nice and clear. Right. We are today updating the medium-term financial strategy for 2024-2029. This aims to balance the ambition of this Council as set out in the strategic plan with a clear commitment contained in the pledge to deliver value for money for residents and businesses and live within our means. We need to strike the right balance between ensuring that we honour this pledge and ensure we continue to invest in our longer-term aims for the Council. In February 2023, the medium-term financial strategy for 23-28 was approved. This included a balanced budget for 23-24 and a balanced MTFS over the 5-year period. Since then, members and officers have been working hard to refresh and update the plans. I could easily skip over that point, but I will draw your attention to the fact Staffordshire County Council was able to publish a balanced budget for the period. There are quite a few councils who would struggle to do that. The global economic picture of rising inflation and interest rates continues to place significant pressure on budgets. Despite recent reductions in the overall rate of inflation, it still remains well above the target set by the Bank of England. The integrated performance reports to Cabinet each quarter show a picture of relative financial stability during 23-24, except in the areas of children's services and send transport, which are both under high pressure from increasing levels of demand and inflation. In addition to the high needs block, which is funded from the dedicated schools grant, known as the DSG, is also overspending due to increased demand. Underpinning the planning framework is the Council's aim of setting a good and balanced budget, which is quite challenging given the financial outlook for local government. However, we think we've achieved this aim. The planning period is 5 years, which provides a framework that promotes longer-term planning. This has proved difficult recently with single-year settlements announced by government. The recent autumn statement gave little specific information for council funding, and we continue to wait for the finance settlement announcement on the 19th of December. The late notification of our funding for next year and the absence of future year settlements makes longer-term financial planning very difficult indeed, and I would implore government to consider longer-term funding and give us more time for planning. Identifying efficiency through innovation and new ways of working has featured heavily in previous years' financial strategies, and in the light of the current economic climate, will continue to be a fundamental part of the Council's plans going forward. The Council has a proven track record of delivering cost reductions, with £127 million being identified and delivered in the past 7 years up to and including 22-23. We are continuing to transform and remodel how we work by making more use of technology and data in this digital age. This is ongoing, with further advances in technology generating more possibilities. With less funding, we are looking at communities to take on even more responsibility and supporting people to make the best choices for themselves and their families so that fewer families need our help. In addition to additional resources to help with the impact of inflation, budgetary increases have been required for adult services, increasing numbers of children in our care, and an increasing number of education, health and care plans where transport needs are to be provided. The high needs block forecast is forecast to overspend by £20 million in the current year. This reflects the continuing growing demand for special educational needs support, which is impacting across all areas, but especially the independent sector, with numbers now double what they were 4 years ago. It is critical that local government look again at this system and associated funding, as there is a huge risk that the Council's deficit management plan will not balance the books in respect of the gap in the high needs block. Outside the issue of social care, there are pressures in other service portfolios. Additional pressures have been recognised to improve the management of the council-owned trees, along with pressures relating to removal of charges for non-household waste. Taking everything into account, the new increase in the budget for 24-25 is in excess of £55 million and rises to over £140 million by the end of the MTFS period. The draft medium-term financial strategy considered today shows that it is possible to maintain our balanced 5-year plans. However, there are a range of significant risks which need to be carefully monitored and managed, and these are set out in detail in the report, and I thank portfolio holders for their diligence in making sure that these are monitored. The balanced position does require us to reduce the cost of children's placements and send transport over time, and Councillor Price is certainly onto that, as is Councillor Sutton. The current assumption in the financial plans contained in this report is that the general council tax increase is 2.99% for 24-25, and the adult social care precept is to be increased by 2% in line with the referendum limits issued for both 23-24 and 24-25. Thereafter, it is assumed that the general precept increases by 1.99% and that the adult social care precept increases by 1%. We have reviewed the earmarked reserves and provisions we hold to make sure that they are still required and that they are adequate. Some reserves earmarked for general funding purposes and for funding inflationary pressures can be released in a targeted manner to balance the budget over the MTFS period. By the end of the MTFS period, £6 million of earmarked reserves is required to balance the year's budget. This situation is sustainable within the MTFS period, but beyond 28-29, this cannot continue. The draft MTFS presented today proposes contributions into reserves for the first 2 years, then using that funding in the latter part of the 5-year period. Beyond the MTFS period, this is not sustainable in the longer term. A savings or transformation programme will have to be identified to bridge the funding gaps in the longer term. The digital strategy also needs to be developed alongside any transformation programme. Scrutiny now needs to be undertaken on the results of the MTFS exercise, and it is proposed that the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee be asked to scrutinise the results of the MTFS exercise set out in this report. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the presentation of the MTFS. Are there any questions that I might take back to Councillor Parry before I read out the recommendations or observations? Thank you. The recommendations are as follows. That in respect of the medium-term financial strategy for 24-29, Cabinet first considers the updates to the financial plans as set out in this report, including the potential use of reserves to balance the MTFS period and risks associated with that. 2, endorse new savings as well as the commitment to continue to deliver the previously approved cost reductions as set out in appendices 2A to 2E. 3, receive a further report in January to recommend a revenue budget, MTFS and council tax to the full council in February. And 4, ask the Corporate Review Committee to scrutinise the proposed pressures and cost reduction options against the principles of a good and balanced budget. It's worth reminding ourselves that we don't set council tax in this room. It is a matter for full council, and they will do so in due course. We are merely recommending from here to council some proposals. Ladies and gentlemen, they are the recommendations set out for the MTFS report. All those in favour?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right. Thank you. Agenda item number 8, decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. Just bear with me, I will get to that. Just the one item, which is from the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. First, in approving the extension of contract IA1632, improving the emotional health and well-being of children and young people in Staffordshire, as per the contract particulars, for 12 months from the 1st of April 2024 to the 31st of March 2025, brackets final year. The contract will end on the 31st of March 2025. You certainly do the catchy ones, don't you, Councillor Sutton? I'll come to you in a second. and in approving the utilisation of funding from Staffordshire County Council Public Health ring-fenced reserves to meet inflationary pressures and maintain service levels in the final year of the contract, 1st of April 2024 to the 31st of March 2025. Councillor Sutton, please.
As you've described, Leader, this is an extension of the current contract we have. And I think it's really just important to mention how the emotional health and well-being of children within the county is particularly important. And this delivers that type of health, the sort of mental well-being prior to children escalating to a higher level like CAMS. So it is absolutely essential, and it's a really good news that we've been able to extend this and give us opportunities then to look forward to how we develop this contract after this period of time.
Thanks for giving a more fulsome explanation of that, Councillor Sutton. As it was set out, it wasn't particularly helpful, so that's a very useful addition. Thank you. Next agenda item is the forward plan of key decisions. Moving forward to January, in public, Homes for Children in Our Care, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Mark Sutton. Residential Overnight Education, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton, and the Cabinet Member for Education and Send, Councillor Price. Service provision of temporary and interim human resources, brought to you by myself. Here to Help progress update, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture, Councillor Wilson. Carbon sequestration and woodland creation, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, Councillor Tagg. Natural Environment Strategy, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, Councillor Tagg. And then in January in private, unregulated placements, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. Drug and Alcohol Services, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel. Then on the 24th of January, the single item is the Medium-Term Financial Strategy 2024-2025. Might be brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Parry, but if you want a second run at myself, then it could be me. Moving forward to February, in public, apprenticeship levy brought to you by the Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White. Integrated Performance Report Quarter 3, 23-24, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Parry, and myself. Equalities, Diversity and Inclusion Progress Update, brought to you by myself. Lighting and ITS Energy Contract Procurement Proposals, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport, Councillor Williams. Civil Contingencies Policy and Business Continuity Management Policy, brought to you by myself. Moving into March, in public, Joint Enterprise Legacy Committee, brought to you by the Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White. In private, in March, Burton Regeneration, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture, Councillor Wilson. In public, in March, Capital Programme for Schools 24-25, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Education and Send. In public, Section 75 Agreement for the Provision of Adult Social Care Assessments and Case Management, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel. Recommissioning of residential and nursing care homes, which you alluded to earlier, Councillor Jessel, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care. Moving forward to April, Children and Young People's Emotional and Health and Wellbeing Service, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. And in private in April, Unregulated Placement Update, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. So you need to enjoy Christmas, ladies and gentlemen, because you've got a busy new year. That's for sure. So that, I think, concludes that part of the agenda. Just checking my papers. Just looking at Mr. Bradbury, get the nod. I now move to agenda item number 10, which is the exclusion of the public, that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 as indicated below. I so move. I do it deliberately, Kerry, see if I can get you. You don't need to rush out, Kerry. The cameras have to be turned off. So good to see you, as always.